A hearing in Congress today discussing the impeachment of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for the disaster that he has wrought upon the country by opening our borders. Democrats say all he's doing is carrying out Biden's policies. Okay, fine, impeach him too. Meanwhile, attorneys general from across the country all testified before Congress today that the suffering that they're experiencing in their states is a direct result of Alejandro Mayorkas' leadership of the Department of, again, Homeland Security. For more on this issue, and I want to bring in a guy who knows all about this subject, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd, joins us on the phone. Sir, great to have you back with us. Thank you.
Good to be with you, Vince. Thank you.
The Democrats today are arguing that Mayorkas is not guilty of any high crimes or misdemeanors and therefore should not be impeached. Do you agree?
No, absolutely not. And we can't know that until all of the hearings are through. I mean, there's going to be a series of hearings. But what this is going to do, and what I'm very, very happy about, is this is going to shed a light on everything that is going on. Congress is going to have subpoena power. They're going to be able to get all of the information. The public is going to know about what's going on. My biggest frustration is every single time that you hear Mayorkas talk, he only gives part of the information. He doesn't give the public everything. When we talk about democracy being under attack, I believe that the biggest attack on democracy is when government officials like Secretary Mayorkas do not give the American public all the information that they need to be able to make an informed decision. That's what democracy is about, being able to make a decision based upon all of the facts, all of the information. And he constantly withholds a majority of the facts so that the American people cannot make that decision.
In fact, let me play an example of this, because what Brandon Judd is saying is totally right. And if you listen to any interview with Alejandro Mayorkas, you detect it instantly. This is Mayorkas with Fox's Brett Baer last week. Brett was asked about the number of illegals that are being released into the country, and Mayorkas refused to give a clear answer, although he claimed he knew the data.
Would it surprise you to hear that CBP sources say that currently they are releasing more than 70% of the migrants crossing every day, and sometimes more than that number, higher than 70%? Would that surprise you?
It would not surprise me at all. I know the data. And I will tell you that when individuals are released, they are released into immigration enforcement proceedings.
Okay, so here he is making a claim that he's like, I know the data, but he refuses to tell us. What is that?
So that interview right there is what caused me to go down to the muster in Eagle Pass to ask him about that specific number, because every single Border Patrol agent, we all know that the numbers are at least 85%, at least. The only reason that we can't give you an exact number is because we don't control everything. ICE also has a piece to this, and ICE also releases a number of people, and we don't get to see that. So when I was in that muster, I told him exactly that. I believe the American people have a right to know exactly what is going on. And so because he had that data, he should have told Brett. It was his responsibility to tell Brett that, Brett, the number is much higher than 70. It's actually around 90%. It could be as high as 95%, given what's happening on any given day. But then we go beyond that. Look at what he said. They're put into immigration proceedings. That's what he did. So he's painting the picture that these people are actually being held accountable, and they're not. That was another false statement. He had a responsibility to tell Brett that, hey, when they're placed into immigration proceedings, what that means is they're being released into the United States, and the vast majority of these people aren't showing up to their court appearances, and they're absconding, and warrants are issued, and those warrants aren't being carried out. That was his responsibility. But he, first off, doesn't answer the 70%. He doesn't give the exact answer because he knows that he said that he knew the data. But then he also went a step further and painted a false picture for the American people. And that's what frustrates me the most. I don't care if you agree with me. You can disagree with me as much as you want. What I care about is that you're able to make your decision based upon all of the facts, not part of the facts.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that leap out to me about Alejandro Mayorkas. I'll list them real quickly for you, and you can respond to any of them. But one is he's compelling the Border Patrol to cut open the concertina wire that Texas is laying out to try and stop people from getting into the country. That's obviously an effort to help more foreign nationals get in rather than to stop them, despite what he might be saying. Two, he lied about the Border Patrol when it came to the horsewhipping scandal. He made that up. He straight up lied. He knew. He had. There's evidence, email evidence, that I believe the Heritage Foundation obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request that demonstrated Mayorkas knew that no Border Patrol agents were whipping illegal immigrants, and yet he slandered members of the Border Patrol anyway. If lying was good enough to impeach Bill Clinton, it's good enough to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. And then, finally, he also said that if you're here in the country illegally, that is not a basis for deportation under his policies. Yep. I'm sorry, it is the law that you can be deported for being here illegally.
And that right there, I'm gonna touch on every single one of those. But that right there, the law, our laws. This is exactly what I'm sorry. This is a paraphrase of what the law says, but I'm going to use one specific word. The law says that if you're in our country illegally, you shall be removed. That's what it says. It doesn't say you might be removed, you could be removed. It says you shall be removed. Yet if you look at the number of deportations that have taken place under this administration, it is a very, very small fraction of the total number of people that have crossed our borders illegally. So it's clear that the law is not being followed. And then, of course, when they leave, like what you just said, when the administration, if Mayorkas said that, I know that Biden said it, that he said that people, just the fact of being in our country illegally is not enough for us to go after you and remove you. That clearly shows that we're not following the law. And if we're not following the law, then I believe that is, in fact, a high crime and misdemeanor. Yeah. Then on top of it, you talk about the horse patrol. He did, in fact, know several hours before that the photographer said nobody was struck, nobody was whipped. Yet he went as far as inflaming the public by saying these images bring back the darkest days of our history. He equated those pictures to slavery, even though he knew that the agents didn't do anything wrong. So again, he's constantly only given a very small amount of information, and because the mainstream media doesn't call him upon it, that's all the American public has to go on when they're making decisions. That's wrong. And lying to the American people should be an impeachable offense.
And the last one was the concertina wire. He's making Border Patrol agents cut it open. Why is that?
Yeah. So again, that's just that's one of those. That's one of my biggest frustrations is we have to follow lawful orders. And if a lawful order is given, our agents have to follow it. So if they're told to go out and cut the concertina wire to take people into custody, then they have to do it. There's nothing unlawful. It's wrong. They shouldn't be given this order, but they do have to follow it as long as it's not unlawful. But when you look at that, there are so many other ways that he could go about that. We could walk them. I mean, it's not like we cut the wall when people cross into the border, because that wall's not built right on the border. That wall is given a 3-foot buffer. So when people are at the wall, they're actually in the United States, but we don't cut that. But they're making us cut what Texas is putting up, and that's just to thumb their nose at Texas officials like Governor Abbott.
But also, we keep hearing that Border Patrol, which of course it is stretched too thin. They don't have the capacity to handle the entire border right now, that there's too much processing going on. So wouldn't an administration that's interested in helping the Border Patrol welcome any effort to slow illegals from getting into the country?
They absolutely should. When you listen to Biden say, well, I'm trying to get more money. We don't need more money. We don't need more taxpayer. We don't need the taxpayer to foot this bill. What we need is President Biden to step to the plate and give us the proper policy. If he did that, we could secure the border tomorrow. And after policy, then we can evaluate what other technology, what other infrastructure, what other manpower do we need. He knows this, but he constantly wants to deflect. He constantly wants to put this issue on Congress when he has the executive authority tomorrow to do what he needs to do.
Can you tell me? I've asked a couple guests about this, and it seems that the summary here is that that the Biden administration moved illegal immigrants out of Eagle Pass, Texas, last week when Republican congressmen arrived. There were like 60-some Republican congressmen who showed up in Eagle Pass. What was happening behind the scenes before those Republican congressmen appeared?
So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go as far as saying that it was Biden that did this. What I will say is that the cartels are savvy enough to understand what our politics are here in the United States. And right before those congressmen went out there, right before that delegation of 60 went out there. Eagle Pass was the busiest station in the entire nation. They were apprehending upwards of 2,000 people every single day. The moment that it was announced that they were going out there, that number dropped. It spiked elsewhere, but it dropped right there. Then on top of that, just look at what happened when Secretary Mayorkas went out there. He was out there on Monday. The day before that, our apprehensions in Eagle Pass were right at 600. He goes out there, they got cut in half. It's not like border crossings were cut in half because those numbers just moved elsewhere, but right there in Eagle Pass. And what that does is that shows you the savvy of these cartels. It shows you how intelligent they are because they knew that all of the cameras were coming. They knew that the mainstream media had no choice but to cover this issue. So they just dropped the number of crossings in that area.
This is a super important point. I'm glad you're here to make it. Again, we're talking to Brandon Judd, the head of the Border Patrol Union. So from your perspective, you're not aware of any Border Patrol agents or maybe even ICE agents who were involved in moving human beings away from the site.
No.
It's the cartels that decided not to send people in for those days while the Republican congressman and subsequently Alejandro Mayorkas were there.
Yeah, no, this has nothing to do with Border Patrol agents. Now, do I believe, just through my 25 years experience, do I believe that our government is in contact with the Mexican government and saying, hey, this is going to look really bad for us if we have these huge numbers of crossings? Absolutely. We know that the Mexican government is extremely corrupt. We know that cartels have infiltrated the Mexican government. We recognize this. This is a reality that we live with every single day. So do I have any doubt that the Mexican government was involved in it? No, but it is ultimately the cartels. The cartels decide when, where, and how people are going to cross. And any time we send delegations out there, the cartels will move the people because they don't want the media coverage.
Finally, Brandon Judd, of course, it's called the Border Patrol. What % of the workforce is actually patrolling the border?
So unfortunately, the running joke right now is that we're not the Border Patrol anymore. We're the Welcome Patrol. That's the running joke. And it's very unfortunate because we want to go out. We want to do our job. We want to do what the American people expect us to do. We just can't do it because of this administration's policies. And that's what puts American citizens in danger, and it frustrates us every single day.
And when you met with Alejandro Mayorkas and talked with him, how icy was that conversation? He knows you want him to resign.
Well, I was in a room filled with around 70 Border Patrol agents, and so when I talked to him about the importance for democracy's sake of telling the American people what's out there, and I told him that we know that it's 85%. At that point, he said, "Yeah, it's higher than 85%." So it was one thing, but it's not like he can lie to the agents that are right there that know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Man, it's a wild time. Thank you for giving us a perspective on it. Brandon Judd, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.